I'm going to share with you now is going to be an orientation to the new accountability system. We used to call it the AEIS, remember the Academic Excellence Indicator System. This is the state accountability system now. It's called the Texas Accountability and Intervention System. So for you that are in the schools, you may already have heard a little bit about it. And I know for sure, you know that it is affecting your work. So you need to be very familiar with it. There will be some information that you will get that builds up to why accountability. So we're going to start off by looking at the demographics of the state. And we're going to then have a chance to just very quickly look at the overview of the accountability system. I want to spend a few minutes talking about what can make the difference in terms of student performance. Give you an overview of the performance index framework, which really deals with what you're needing to do in your schools now. And then some of the strategies that from those people that are out in the field working with schools that are not doing well, the unacceptable, those that are not meeting AYPs, what is an adequate yearly project, not meeting the federal accountability system requirements. Better make sure you understand AYP, adequate yearly project. And so we'll start right off. Key word. What would the key word be?
Poverty.
Poverty, right? Let's look at the realities of the state of Texas. What's happening now, where we are between here this decade and then looking at the future. So I thought you might be interested in looking at this here. Here's the population changes in Texas counties from 2000 to 2010. And yours is in black and white, so look up here. The areas that are growing, 20.6% or more, there's 34 counties. Each one of these areas lies in here. There's 254 counties in the state. Look at where Region 1 is. This is blue, and there's percent change in terms of population. Look at where the change is. The fastest growth areas are in Region 1 area, the Laredo area, the metropolitan areas, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. Then there's a couple of counties that are out here in West Texas. And El Paso is also growing some. And what do you usually find in terms of growth in urban areas and in the Rio Grande Valley? All right. What race, what group, what ethnicity? Usually Hispanics, right? In the Rio Grande Valley for sure. All right. So let's look now at counties with population changes between 2000 and 2010. These are the Hispanic population changes with growth in blue. So what areas are growing in Hispanic population? Just about every county, right? In the state of Texas. You see the population growth, 238 counties in blue. Years back, I took a sociology course here at the university, and I had an opportunity. I said, I'm going to do a study of Hidalgo County and see what the population was like at the time. And I was telling Mr. Peña, he was going to present here with us. He's not able to be here with us at this time. But I was telling him at the time that I did that, this was in the early 70s, you could see similar type of projections for Hidalgo County and the local area as you're seeing here for the state. What you're seeing here for the state is, here's the Hispanic population in red. Look at the percent of Hispanic versus non-Hispanic or Anglo population across the state.
Wow.
What happens as we move from the young age, like you are in this age group in here, right? You're between 20 and what, 30 years old?
Yes.
Somewhere in there?
Yeah.
At least 20, right? Well, you are here. And you're saying that across the state, this would be about equal. 48, 49% Hispanic versus non-Hispanic. I'm in this group. And so, look at the difference here as I move into the next one. And what do you see happening across the state? By the year 2050. Say that, you want to say that?
We're in the majority.
I don't, we would have to blip it. No, but look at what's happening here. You see, Hispanic population continues to what? Age-wise. 5-year-old will be way up here, but even when you get to this age in 2050, you'll be over here. You've gone from the middle here, where you are here now. In 2050, you'll be about this age, right? But look at what happens to the population of Hispanics. Here are your educational attainment levels. And when you look at the Hispanic population, what is that over there? High school?
High school.
So most of our population, high school graduates with diploma, some college, and then bachelor's degree. You're amongst the elite right now, because you have a bachelor's degree. So we have even a smaller number of masters, smaller number of PhDs when we look at the Hispanic population. So I'm hoping that you move from here to masters to PhDs or EDDs to a doctorate. Okay? Today you're being encouraged to do it. Poverty. Individuals, and you have families, elderly, those that are over 18. The poverty is, the percentage of people that are in poverty, has increased or increases. And then as the population grows, with the trends continue, what happens with the Hispanic population when you look at your income median or your median income in comparison to other populations? It's lower. So as the population increases of Hispanics, what is happening here? In 2010, it's 66,000. It is projected that in 2050, it is 58,000. In your schools, you're going to be dealing a lot with English language learners. Yes? And you will be dealing and working with the lower socioeconomically disadvantaged students. So what needs to happen in order for this here to change? What's going to be what we now call the equalizer?
Good education.
Good what?
Education.
Good education. So that means in your classrooms, you really need to provide quality education. The accountability system now requires that every student is part of the system, that it is accounted for. Up until the mid-90s, the accountability system as we know it now started in '93. And slowly it has gotten more rigorous, and it has gotten to include more students. Now, with the new accountability system, all students are in the system, in the state accountability system. The federal accountability system does not include all of them, but for the state, it does. So these trends are happening across the state. They're happening faster in Texas, and I've been saying for many years, it's been happening here for a lifetime to me, here in the Valley. So we believe that in your schools, this university, that we can become the place that can be the model for the rest of the state and for the rest of the country in terms of how we work with Hispanic students and the economically disadvantaged. You agree?
Yes.
Are you up to the challenge?
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to tell you principals that. But really, when you go out to the school, that's going to be your challenge. Now that you're out there, that's your challenge. And you've got different kinds of programs to deal with. I'm going to share a few things with you that might be of help. So we're moving from a society where it was okay for only a few students to do well. We used to say if 1/3 of the students do well, that's great, then the other middle, they're the middle, and then the low end, well, if they don't make it, that's all right. Because they can go out and they can find them a job of some type. Nowadays, that's not possible. If you don't have an education, you're not doing well. If you graduate from high school and go to McDonald's, you just earn a living making minimum wage. You cannot support yourself or your family. So the new accountability system now, very quickly on this, is basically saying, before this system, the campuses took the brunt of the responsibility. With the new accountability system, it has responsibilities for the district, and the district has to provide supports to the campus. And so there is a partnership, and there is that requirement that everybody works together for it. So there are district commitments. The district has to help in creating a sense of urgency in your schools, and they need to be providing supports for the campuses that are required for the campuses to do what it is that needs to get done. And you have in the circle there some of your support systems, everything from structures, from staff development, the kinds of things that from the district level you get help with. So they can help you with curriculum development, they can provide you funding, they can provide you programs. The implementation, though, still has to come from the campuses and you in the school. So the state may say, here's what needs to be done, what's required. The district say, here's what needs to be done, and here are the supports we're going to provide you. But the bottom line is, at the end, it's in the school and in each classroom that it has to happen. And the way that you look at this system is going to be different from those that are out there and those that are in the classroom where you are instead. So let's look at some of the factors then that will help in the schools. Would it surprise you that teacher quality is the one that makes the greatest difference in student performance in your school? That is the number one factor. What's the quality of the teacher, the teacher quality and the quality of instruction that is being provided? So what you do in the classroom is very important. You can look at all the research and all of it will point to the quality of instruction makes a big difference. There's been research that's been done that if you have a student that gets 3 ineffective teachers in a row versus one that has 3 effective teachers in 3 years in a row, that there is a wide gap between the performance of those students that had the high quality teacher, quality instruction, versus those students that did not. So you make a big difference. What you do makes a difference. The next one here that in terms of improving instruction, or improving student performance, is leadership effectiveness. How effective the leader, your principal, and your leadership team is within your school. We don't know campuses that are doing well without an effective leader. Where we have had low-performing campuses, it has taken effective leaders to come in and help turn that campus around. So teachers and leadership making a great difference. School climate. How do people work together within the school? What's the teaching and learning climate like? Is it one of a positive nature, or is it one where people really don't believe that our students can make it? I used to say, students who may not know the language, students who are come from an economically disadvantaged home, may have what in Perkins' word is the idea of warm and cold environment. The students that we have in our school need to come to a warm place where those that work with them really have good relationships with them. That it should not make a difference what kind of an environment they have away from home. That even if it's cold out there, not a caring environment, that we can create conditions within the school where it's caring, respectful, responsible, that we can be working with those students in that manner. So that the climate is such that you as an adult want to be there, and that students, as students, want to be in your class and in your school. And the climate that you have in your schools will make a tremendous difference. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't make any difference out there, because we say what happens in your schools is, and the results that you get are dependent upon the choices that you make, what you're doing, what you choose to do with them when they come to your school. Family and community engagement, that ought to be no surprise. Parents make a difference. Your families make a difference. The community makes a difference. The resources that are available and how the schools access those resources that are available to help students make a big difference. So your parents, involve them more than in just come in and PTA meetings, PTO meetings, or fake sales and all. But they really have to become meaningful partners with you in the education process. Meaningful in the sense that we talk about what's good for the child, and that we can have discussions with parents about that. Not in front of others, but really saying what works well for them, what experiences that they have. How can we help them? And oftentimes we don't have parents involved in that manner in our schools. We bring them in, they come in for different things, come and go, but not in a way that we can really sit down and have meaningful discussions about what really impacts learning, whether it's at the school or how they can help at home. Academic performance is just set up to where everything here is really about academic performance. Everything contributes to student performance. In your schools, you're utilizing data. What is data? Anybody? Oh, I've been talking too much.
Facts,
Data.
Facts about students, facts about everything, about teachers, about the community, just facts, statistical facts. Based on numbers.
So the data is information that,
Yes.
that becomes useful to you. And what data would be available to you to make a difference in student learning.
Yes.
And so the type of data that you use, not how much you have. I mean, you can have piles and piles of stuff on your table that we're using all this data. But it is going to be the type of data that you have that can give you information of how your child, your student is doing. So in your schools, you have benchmarks. Raise your hand if you know what that word is. Benchmarks. Oh, wow, yes. Yes. The benchmarks, you have your 6 weeks test, you have unit tests. All of those are sources of information. Now, how you use them in your schools will make a difference. So the type of data and how you use the data is important. And it ought to be more than the principal saying, here's the data, here's what it says, here's what you need to do with it, and you're going to work with these kids, you're going to work with these kids, you're going to work with these kids, and here's how you're going to work with them, here's how you're going to work with them, here's how you're going to work with them. So where it says, here's the data, let's sit down and let's talk and see what it says. So it is not the principal having to tell you what to do, but that together, collaboratively, we decide. We know what we want for our students, what does the data tell us in terms of where they are, and what do we need to do. But that is collaboratively decided, collaboratively discussed, and decisions made about it. And remember this about data. Data is only a picture of what the child was doing at the point of time of the test. Get that? It does not tell you the potential of the student or how much the student can really learn. It only tells you how he did at that point in time, or she did. If you believe that that's all that they can do, then you will not help them grow to where they really can get. Does that make sense? See, and the other thing that you have to remember is that the data doesn't tell you the truth. It's not the total picture of the child. It tells you what they are able to do with reading, or it may tell you what they are able to do with math. But it may not tell you all of the different talents and skills that that child has. So one of the things that we had to look at in terms of designing programs for English language learners and others was that why do we need to ask the question, why do we need to have reading and math tests to determine who's gifted and talented? But can we have other factors? Can we find other factors that determine whether they're creative, productive, creative thinkers, problem solvers? And you have children like that in your schools. But because they do not have the language or have had the experiences before they came to school, very early on we may tag them as being slower than others. So you must not, don't get into that trap. That a piece of information can also hold people back. You all have taken tests as adults, right?
Yes.
And maybe some of you, like I did, maybe we have to take the test more than once. But yet in our school, sometimes we say, well, they already had a chance. They don't deserve another chance. But the research really says that when you have multiple opportunities for learning, that students will rise to the level that at one time you only thought some students could get to. Okay?
Yes.
So that's your challenge. Using the data right, and don't let that also be as something that tells you the child can't make it, but rather say it is only telling you where he is. Now your challenge is to take him where he needs to be. And the increasing learning time in the schools, one of the greatest challenges that people tell me they have is we don't have time. Yes? How many of you have enough time in the day to do everything you need?
No.
Only one of you do? Yeah. Because everywhere I go, they tell me they don't. We need more time. We just need more time to plan. We need more time to do this. We need more time to do that. But we're going to talk. What I want to emphasize here is this is referring to academic learning time. And in your schools, how many secondary teachers in secondary skills? You may have. Let's just start with this. I'm going to put this mic down. We have 55-minute periods. Do all of your students get to class on time?
No.
Let everybody tell the truth. Because that reduces your time, right? And then what you do in the classroom with the students, when you get started, may even reduce it further. Now, if the students are understanding what you are saying, they are into academic learning time. If they are not understanding what you're saying, your academic learning time could be 0. So for you, in terms of learning time and to maximize learning time, I have to know where students are, what do they bring into class, where do I need to take them, and somewhere in there, academic learning time is going to have to be that point at which they're being challenged, they still can perform with the help of the teacher. do they have the prerequisite skills to do the task, to learn that which is expected of them? Because if they don't and you ignore it, they're not tuned in. Would you agree?
Yes.
Making sense?
Yes.
Very long time ago, in my early years, Bloom came out and said that students really need to have the prerequisite skills to learn that which you're expecting them to learn, cognitively and effectively. You have to feel good about it, and I have to emotionally be ready for it, and I also have to have my cognitive prerequisite skills. If I ignore that, then they're not into academic learning time. So you have the, what is it, that zone of development,
Proximal
proximity,
Mm-hmm.
and you all remember
CPD.
that. And the Bloom's work in a different way, both of them saying, one over there in Russia and one here, that we really have to consider what it is that the child brings to school. Now, I always said that, imagine this, prerequisite skills for math, prerequisite skills for whatever you teach. And then there's the prerequisite vocabulary, the language. And that for English language learners, if you just think about the cognitive prerequisites, the content prerequisites, then you've got a student that may be struggling with language that doesn't get it. So you've got to get both for English language learners, content and language. Got it? So we know that if you want to increase learning time, you really have to pay attention to that. Now, and then in your schools, to get more time, remember this. How many of you are planning by yourselves in your rooms? By yourselves, alone. That's tough, isn't it? We are now moving away from planning alone to planning collaboratively in teams. And you can find more time when you do that because you can share responsibilities rather than doing it by yourself. So those are some success factors that can help. Let's look at the system in terms of what you're needing to make sure that the students do in terms of with their overall performance. Put your hand out because you can read that up there. If you can, I want to see your eyes. I don't know how you do it.
It's easier there.
All that you need to know here from this one is there's 4 indexes. This is your overview of the performance index framework. So student performance in your school is now being looked at in 4 different ways. Overall student achievement, index 1. Index 2 has student progress. Index 3 has closing the performance gap. And index 4 has post-secondary readiness. Let's take one at a time. So for student achievement, what goes into that index is the overall average of all of the students in all of the tests that are taken at your campus, that they take. So that it is not getting performance by subgroups. But we take, let's say if you have 500 students taking 5 different tests, it's the average. Are they all at the level that they should be? And there's a performance standard that ought to be reaching. So the purpose of the index is to provide a snapshot of performance across all subjects at the satisfactory performance standards. These are the subjects that are being tested. But in elementary, you teach writing at what grade level? Only. What grade level?
4.
4. And science?
5th.
5th. And the other ELA and math?
It's 3rd, 4th, and
3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it's how all of the students are doing in all of the subjects that it is, comes out with an average, and then you have only the all students groups determining whether they are at the level that it needs to be. So let's say 55% is the expected level, I'm going to just give you a number. I don't have it on top of my head. But let's say if it's 60% of all the students needing to pass all tests, and your school is at 58, then your school would not meet the standard. If your school is above 60, the school meets the standard. Got it? It might be 55, but I'm just giving you a number. For student progress then, now we're looking at every group of students. And in your index, in the handout, you'll see that there's 7 racial or ethnic groups: African American, American Indian, Asian, and you can read the rest. Then there's also a group of English language learners, and for special education. So there's a predicted student progress for getting at least to level 2. Level 1 is unsatisfactory performance. Yes? Everybody? Level 2, satisfactory, and level 3 is, what is it? Advanced. The advanced academic performance. For student progress, okay, over here it's every group has to, or every student, the number of students that are reaching the level, the required improvement level. So you have 3 growth factors. If they do not meet their growth expectation, that student gets a 0. If they meet growth expectations, they get a 1, and exceed growth expectations, they get 2s. So all of these are totaled up, and you have total number of points, total number of tests, and then points earned. A campus gets that. Again, there's a standard for the campus. Let's say the standard again is at 60. If the total number that met required improvement is above 60, you meet standard. If it is below 60, you do not meet standard. Then the next one is, now we're not only looking at required improvement for every child, but we're looking at performance gaps. What is the difference between the performance of English language learners and non-English language learners? Economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged. And what are the gaps? So here, closing gaps emphasizes advanced academic achievement of economically disadvantaged students and the two lowest performing race or ethnicity student groups. Same subject areas, and here are your student groups. So economically disadvantaged will be there, plus the two lowest performing races or ethnic groups in the school. And then this one here is new. Well, it's not new for the last 2 years it's been there. But post-secondary readiness, it's new in the sense that there is more emphasis being placed on it. If you're in high school, you're familiar with this already, or should be. What % of the students are meeting the final level 2 on one or more tests for all students and race and ethnicity groups? The same subject areas. And the minimum size for those groups has to be, they have to have at least 10 students. So if one of the subgroups does not have 10 students, it's not going to be reported. For the elementary schools and the middle schools, post-secondary readiness is determined by the number of students that are attaining level 3. On performance, that would be your advanced level for post-secondary readiness. Now for what's going to happen with the high schools is that there's going to be other criteria that come into play here, in addition to just the post-secondary, the advanced level scores. And with what's coming up here within the next year or so is the number of students that are graduating with like the dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment classes, and perhaps even what they're, not perhaps, but the number or percentage of students that are also graduating because of their endorsements now in high school, where they are into the STEM, we used to call them here academies, the arts and like your human services, your multidisciplinary type of endorsements. Students are needing to pass a test in the area of that particular industry. So if they're into business, they will take a business exam. If they are into, let's say, auto mechanics or whatever that industry is, they would come out with some kind of a certificate program.
They're done by career paths.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now there's 16 career pathways. And so out of those 16 career pathways or clusters, they can get, the high schools are supposed to pick 5 endorsements. And one endorsement is really a tough one. When you get to the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math, the first math course there is Algebra 2, and then all of the other maths have to be higher than Algebra 2. So, and all of the endorsements will require an additional math and an additional science. And out in the field, what Mr. Peña told you about is all of the different practices that they're finding that schools that are not doing well, that have not been doing well, but they've been working with them. What has helped in terms of the work that they're doing? Collaboration among teachers is essential. Working alone is tough. More and more you need to be about planning together. I know that there's a requirement in terms of how much planning time you get in the schools, but remember that planning time is planning time is planning time. Whether you're working by yourself or with others, it is still planning time. So what I've encouraged schools to do is to really take a look at asking teachers, how much time do you really need to do the work that you believe you have to be doing by yourself? Grading, entering your grades in your grade book, or however you do it now on your computer. But then when it comes down to planning for your classes, that as much collaboration as you can do, that you do work collaboratively. Because that's also a way of maximizing the time that you have to do the work that you've got to do. The other reason is that the STAR assessment is new. Your tips are you're more into it now than you've done that before. So whether you're a new teacher to the field or whether you're an experienced teacher, everybody has to be learning what the new requirements are and planning for the new rigorous and more engaging lessons that you are needing to be providing students. Okay, data used by teachers and students. You've heard me say a lot about that, so I'm not going to go back to that. The extended learning time. The extended learning time will be what you do with students after school, what you do with them before school, or on Saturdays. So you're doing a lot of tutoring. The effective tutoring programs have small pupil-teacher ratios. If you are working with 22 or with the same number in tutoring as you are during the day, it doesn't really get you the benefits that you would get with smaller groups. So in your schools, when you talk about tutoring, or when you look at developing programs for tutoring, ask the question, what is the purpose of this tutoring program? In some cases, the tutoring may be to help you with the STAR assessment courses, but in others it may be to help you or to help the students with their courses that they're taking. Academic teaming, we're seeing more, particularly in your secondary schools, where you have interdisciplinary teams. And these are teams that are composed of your core area teachers, language arts, math, social studies, and science. And together they plan lessons, and they even find ways to, they have situations where student needs are being addressed, where they need to talk to parents together, that they do that. Deliberate, purposeful, and intentional. Everybody becomes more focused on what needs to be done. And we move away from, it's okay if some don't make it, to where we're not going to leave anything or anyone to chance. I mean, we've got to do everything that we can to help the child. It is no longer about working only with the students that are the bubble kids, but it's about working with all. Because remember, we're looking at all students, we're looking at the progress made by all students, we're looking at closing the achievement gaps, and we're looking at students being post-secondary ready when they graduate from high school. And then the state and national standards have helped us in terms of developing greater alignment between what is expected to be learned, curriculum, what is being taught, instruction, and what is being assessed, assessment. So the state and national standards and what you do in the classroom, there ought to be alignment amongst all of that. And by all means, when you test them, make sure that there's ideal testing conditions for your students. So that, for example, teachers who know the students are sometimes are better in terms of the testing situation, where students may not be apprehensive of the testing condition. I really think, in your classes, one of the things that'll make a big difference for you is knowing your students, knowing who they are, and building those relationships with them. And when I said earlier, creating that caring and respectful environment for the students, that's important. Because they will know that you care about them, so will the parents. And if you can create that, they're going to work a whole lot harder to get to where they need to be. And you can make a big difference. I saw this the other days that you may be just one person in the world, but to one child, you may be that most important person in their life. So at times you're going to be experiencing a lot of challenges, but remember that for a child that's having a difficulty, you might be that last person that child is depending on. Thank you so much for choosing today.